to Mystery Beers episode number 226 of
Brutal Battle.
Yes, and as promised on the last episode, it is my father this time who's in the hot seat, I guess. It's actually the same seat that my mom was in. So
readjusted.
Yeah. They're not sitting in the exact same spot, but it is the same chair. So we're going to just talk about you and your relationship with craft beer. You have more of a relationship with beer in general than Mom does. So let's start with when you were younger. What was your first introduction to beer in general?
I didn't have any beer available to me until I went to college.
Okay.
I was raised in a modestly holy roller type of a church religion, Protestant religion, and no, there was no alcohol. There was not even alcoholic Easter.
So not even for special occasions.
Yes,
basically.
Yeah. The Easter wine, it was supposed to signify Christ and all that kind of stuff. And at this point, I do call it that kind of stuff. That was not alcoholic either. It was grape juice.
I mean, for us, when we were younger, we always enjoyed having, sparkling grape juice or sparkling apple juice, all that. But
because you were underage.
So you weren't even around it at all.
Not until I went to college.
Okay. So you hadn't even seen anyone drinking beer until you went to college?
Yes. That's true.
Really? Okay.
Well,
that's uncommon.
Okay. In my household.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Nuclear family. Okay. Now, outside of that, I remember my great-grandfather on the weekends would be sitting in his chair listening to the Cleveland Indians baseball game.
On the radio, I guess.
On the radio with a Louis L'Amour Western paperback in his lap and a POC on the floor next to him.
What was POC?
I don't know what POC really stood for. It was a beer.
It was a
brand. And it was a Pilsner, and they said it was People of Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
At that time, but I could be misremembering that.
Huh. Yeah, I've never even heard of that. But
POC.
There have been many breweries over history that people have no idea about now, including Baltimore. I believe used to have like 1,000 breweries or something in the Baltimore, Maryland type area, a long time ago.
Yes, and in contrast to Cleveland and Baltimore, had the opportunity to visit Milwaukee at one point.
Okay.
And when I was visiting at that time, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it might have been sometime in the 80s or even early 90s, but somewhere around there, that there was a lot of lamenting that the brewing companies were consolidating and going out of town.
Oh, they were leaving Milwaukee.
They were leaving Milwaukee, but Milwaukee was a big beer brewing town, I remember.
Yeah. For the longest time, it was considered to kind of be the epicenter of beer in the United States.
Yes. And I thought I had moved after I went to college, and I did start drinking some beer. I thought I was moving up when I was able to drink Old Milwaukee beer.
Oh,
yeah. Okay.
Very nice, Old Milwaukee. So so once you get to college, I mean, what was your first introduction? It was just friends,
a pitcher,
drinking?
Yes, yeah. My roommates, we were freshmen in a lot of respects on our own, but not, and exploring. We were at Ohio State University, and we went uptown. We went to High Street, which the university is right up against High Street. So the bars were very accessible. But yes, it would be a pitcher of beer. And if you ask me what brand of beer that was, I couldn't tell you. It was a pitcher of beer. It was the cheapest thing that you could buy and still have some beer.
So it wasn't even called out on any menu. It was just a pitcher of beer. This much.
It was a pitcher.
So
and we would split. Myself and roommates 2 or 3 of us, 4 of us sometimes, we would split the cost of a pitcher, and that's about all we could afford either. So it wasn't fancy, but it was going out to the bar.
Yeah. Well, that points out how the sophistication of beer has evolved over time.
Yeah.
Because the time you're talking about in college, like they wouldn't even say what the beer is because it didn't matter. People were just like, all beer is basically the same. Nowadays, it's very specifically called out. Literally, there are bars and other tap rooms that will put specific beers on tap just to get people to come in because they know that particular style or that particular name of beer will bring more people into their establishment to make money. So it's night and day, really. I mean, it's huge. And that just comes with kind of what we talked about on the last episode with my mom, just what's available. How much wasn't available then and how much is available now. But not even necessarily number of breweries, because at one point there were a ton of breweries, but they were all doing a lot of the same thing. It's more diverse now stylistically. And
yes, I agree with that observation. Yeah.
So I will let you know, too, when I was in college, we visited some people at Ohio State, and I don't know if it worked the same then as it did then,
Yeah.
But they could use their meal plan to purchase beer on campus.
Not when I was in college.
We thought it was great because when we were visiting, we drank for free because we were like, oh, do you want us to chip in? And the people were like, no, this is all part of our meal plan. We can charge it on our meal plan.
A lot changed from the time that I went to college and the time that you went to college. When I went to college, the Commons, which was the cafeteria that serviced 3 or 4 residence halls, had all you could eat, all you could drink of beverages that were not alcoholic, including chocolate shakes, strawberry shakes. You just went to the machine and you got them. And that didn't last very long. It was either the end of my freshman year or the beginning of my sophomore year that there was a big strike for pay on the part of the employees who were being underpaid, the staff. And all of a sudden, they made some adjustments, and there were limitations to what you could get at the residence halls. The quality of the food, I don't recall it going down, but you could only go through the line once, as opposed to you could go through a couple times and get refills on whatever, main course, appetizers, and beverages. And the football players were also in that Commons, and of course, they would go back, like 6 times through the line, and it was just amazing. Of course, those guys were amazingly large, and some of them were nice, and some of them were a little full of themselves and on the angry, nasty side.
Well, unfortunate with that.
Well, yeah.
So you enjoyed beer, or you just kind of, that was the thing to do in college?
It was more a thing to do, but I got I had then a taste of beer. I did not drink beer to get high. I did have one experience where I drank to the point, ended up starting with some beer and going through 2 different kinds of cheap wines. Oh. When I say cheap wines, I'm talking about
like Carlin,
Thunderbird, Ripple, and Bally High. Okay, and waking up the next day and asking my roommate, what the hell happened here?
So
and he's looking at me and saying, "You are what the hell happened here?"
So I don't know those 2 varieties, but Thunderbird I've heard plenty of. That is a thing of legends, not good legends, bad legends, historically speaking, from an alcohol perspective.
But I learned from that experience. I don't like I decided at that point, I don't want to drink to get drunk. I don't want to drink to get high. That's not a feeling that I like. There's too much to life. There's too much going on. Mm-hmm. You just shouldn't be in a state of mind where you can't think.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have people who don't think and they're sober, let alone when they're drunk. So
well,
I prefer to stay on the sober side.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was in college, I did like the idea of getting drunk to get drunk. And that lasted for some years. But then I just feel like with mature individuals, as you get older, you kind of age out of that.
Yeah.
And for me, particularly, it ended up becoming a situation of I don't like not being in total control of all my faculties. I like feeling like I'm normal.
Yeah. And
so,
that's a similar experience that I went through.
Yeah. So, well, and that's where I am still.
Yeah.
I just like feeling normal. That's why when I drink a beer, I will drink one, maybe two, done.
Yeah.
I mean, here and there, it gets a little bit more if I'm like recording a bunch of episodes in a day, but it's not a good time.
Well, and you know from the previous podcast that you recorded that I'm married to a dweeb, apparently. I will not drink a lot during the year, even at the holidays. It's, a beer here and there, a glass of wine here and there. I particularly like to have a nice cold Molson beer after working out in the yard in the summer.
Yeah.
Just sit outside with the work done and have a nice cold Molson beer.
Sure. Well, when I remember you drinking beer most when I was younger was while you're grilling.
Yes.
That always seemed to me to be your sweet spot time-wise of this is when it's appropriate for beer time.
Yeah.
And so I remember, these are all the beers I remember. Molson, of course, because there was usually Molson. Yeah. Boddington's was another one.
Oh, yes. But I think it was getting harder and harder to find it.
I think you can find it. Well, okay, I shouldn't speak yet. As of a few years ago, I think you could find it pretty readily available.
Yeah, but Boddington was very good. It was an ale.
And then Lowenbrow. A little bit of Lowenbrow.
A little bit, but not much. Yeah.
And I think the Lowenbrow was a little bit influenced by me because I started liking Lowenbrow when I was in college and then brought it home and was kind of like, let's drink some Lowenbrow.
I think that's right.
But you took to it,
at
least for a little bit.
Yeah.
But so nowadays when you're going...
I do listen to what you say.
Sometimes, yes. Nowadays when you're on those rare occasions where you want to drink a beer, you want a Molson.
Yes.
But are there any other beers that you will go for?
Yeah, I will try something else, but usually I can't do an Anheuser-Busch product, InBev product at all. I just don't go in that direction.
Is it because of what they make or because of their politics?
No, it's because of what they make. It's like I think Molson is a better beer for my taste than what Budweiser puts out for And I understand. I read something recently that Budweiser was becoming a little more popular. It was becoming unpopular, especially after InBev, bought. But then I also saw that just recently, within the last year, they started putting out their cans that looked awfully political and awfully. This is an American beer. When the company's not American.
Yeah, they're not American.
It's like it's just another lie. Well, and it's not even in the White House.
It's very much of listen to what we say, don't look at what we do.
Yes.
AB InBev's been like that for a long time.
Yeah.
They're not a good company when it comes to looking at the actual industry, the health of the industry of beer. They're bad for it. They're terrible for it because they try and kill everyone else. And variety is what makes any industry thrive, really. So, yeah. But
so a short answer is if I don't have a Molson, I usually I'm not drinking beer.
Yeah.
And that might sound a little weird to some people, especially in this age of craft beer where everybody's trying, 15 different craft beers.
Yeah. But I will say that once again, like with Mom, when we come over and we're having,
Yes.
a family get together, we will
take
bring
some.
beers, and you will always try stuff.
And there are some that you've brought over that I've said, yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah. I think what was the most recent one that you thought was not bad? Was it a Union Skipjack, I think?
That sounds familiar.
Their German Pilsner? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what it was. But yeah, I mean, so you're at least, you don't want to drink often, but you're at least adventurous and will try craft beer. So my aim at some point is to try and get it so you're not buying Molson anymore, and instead you're buying true craft beer, because there is something that's going to taste kind of like it at some point.
At some point, yeah. I mean, I will still try
Somewhere
what you
out
bring
there.
over. Yeah.
The other, and there's a question I have for you, which is, have you ever had Molson Triple X?
No.
It was available when I was in college.
Ice was my favorite.
Molson Ice.
Yes.
I don't think they make it anymore.
And I don't think they do.
Yeah, I think they quit on that.
Right.
I don't even know, what is the difference? Did they?
But right now, if I'm going out to buy some Molson, I'll just get the regular
Molson with the Canadian leaf, the maple leaf on it.
Yes.
Should be watching hockey while you're drinking
That's
Molson.
right.
It goes hand in hand. No, but the Triple X was basically, it was available when I was in college, and I tried it, and it was, I mean, it seems more like a beer with a purpose of getting you somewhere, because it was like 10%, I think.
Yeah.
It was like, here's lots of alcohol and no flavor.
Well, and in when I was younger and I was just out of college and I was working in corrections, I was introduced to Colt 45. I was the only white person who was on our shift. Okay. And it was a great experience. I don't like Colt 45. Didn't like it. Don't like it. Okay. But it was a great awakening for me to understand a culture that I had not seen before. Mm-hmm. And it a lot of great people.
Yeah. That was a job that, well, I know that was a job where you met Mom when you were working in that.
Well, it wasn't that job. It was that was when I went out. That's when I left the corrections institution to the and this was juvenile, but at that time juvenile included people who had committed murder up to the age of 25. So there were 25-year-old people who had committed murder that were in my charge in that institution. Wow. But that was when I was a parole officer. Then I met your mother, and she was no dweeb. She was no dweeb, but she was working at the group home for delinquent youth at the downtown Y in Columbus, Ohio. And I met her there. She was the social worker. I was the parole officer, and we hit it off. There was one day, I came in and the Y had a lunch counter downstairs, and I came in. It was a hot day. And I was cool. I was wearing mirrored sunglasses, and I was the people who were in my charge under parole knew not to mess with me
because of the mirrored sunglasses.
Well, there's an attitude that goes with it. Okay, it's not one I have today, but at that time, and I took off my sunglasses, and she just thought that I looked cool.
Did she think there's a guy who drinks Molson?
However, it took quite a bit of her coworker talking her into actually going out with me when I asked her to go out. So, so on the one hand, we were introduced at the lunch counter in the downtown Y, but on the other hand, it took some coworkers of hers to get her to go ahead and go through with a date with me. And it just was, let's have dinner after a hard day, working with kids who were getting in trouble, working, and there was also an adult program right above that in the next floor. And so the adult people who had been in trouble were influencing the younger kids in the next floor down, including getting them involved in a car theft ring. Because the thought was the adult, if he was caught, would go right to prison, and the juvenile, if he was caught, would just go back to juvenile court.
That's still practice nowadays.
Yeah.
That's still...
Yeah, and it had been one of those situations, and it had been a tough week, and your mother was vulnerable to being asked out.
So she was broken down enough.
And then and then she had second thoughts, and her coworkers, encouraged her to, go out, have dinner.
But everything worked out because I'm here.
Yes,
I exist.
Yes, that was our first date.
So
we are still on that first date.
So I think that even though that doesn't have to do with beer, it goes back to something that is very much tied into beer, which is openness.
Yes.
And the fact that beer, and for a long, long time, has, cultivated a open environment.
And here she came from a family that was very familiar with beer. Mm-hmm. I mean, very German, small town in Ohio, and I came from the culture of no alcohol until I went to college. Okay, so we went to the bar. We played air hockey.
That was big back then?
That was big back then.
I wish it was big now. That's fun.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. It was. Yeah. And the rest is history.
Yeah, it is. Well, and like I was talking about how, beer just cultivates an open environment. Yes. Thinking back to before everyone was using Netflix and just staying in their house more often, the pubs, the bars were the places that everyone would go. Everyone would sit down, have a beer, relax. Mm-hmm. And while you're relaxing with a beer, which, by the way, there is a scientific study that's found that the act of drinking beer actually does physically relax you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to do with alcohol, surprisingly enough. While people are feeling this, they would just get more open. They would talk more to people about their days, about their professions, about whatever.
And one of the things that goes along with that thought is when your mother introduced me to her father and mother, her family, mm-hmm. Okay, her mother had a side talk with me, telling me that I only wanted one thing, and she knew what kind of person I was, and basically she was not happy. Okay.
Yeah, I'd heard that.
However, her dad, I had a beer with her dad. He would grill and he would drink beers, and while he was grilling, and he would grill what he was grilling. Usually it was chicken tenders was his specialty. Okay, which was very, very good.
Was it that same marinated chicken tender recipe that I remember?
Yes.
Oh, it's a great one.
And that your mother has.
Oh, maybe that's another episode.
Yeah,
my mom can do that recipe on there.
Okay, but I could have a beer with him while he went through more than one beers, but that's how he paced when the food was done.
Well, first of all, that's awesome. That's funny.
But he was really, and he was really a good guy.
Yeah, he was a great guy. One of the silent but observing everything and knowing everything type people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a perfect example of how, beer's always been a social thing.
Yeah.
It has that, I don't want to say it's not a stigma. It has that association, basically, where it is a social thing. And that's a prime example of this is how we will break bread. This is how we will get to know each other. I remember actually very similar. Rebecca used to be a aide for and babysitter for a child with special needs when she was in college in Pennsylvania. And that family she got very close with. So when we started dating, she wanted to introduce me to that family. So when I went there, the husband of the family was very much like a father to Rebecca in a sense, like very fatherly, and he wanted to drink a beer with me while he grilled, actually, and we would step outside and talk while we enjoyed our beers, and he wanted to, through that, understand who I was and get a good sense of me, and then that's when he said, after talking to me for a while, that he feels like I could be okay for Rebecca. And then here we are.
Yeah. And I feel I had that kind of unspoken approval from Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, I feel like back then, emotions weren't spoken about as openly as they are nowadays, so that makes sense.
But you could have a beer with your father-in-law to be, okay, in my case, and not really talk about, your relationship with his daughter.
Right. It's just getting to know you as a person.
Yes, but just talking about whatever was in the news or talking about golf or whatever.
And that's beer for you.
Yeah.
It's always been like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
I would like to make one correction to the earlier podcast.
Okay.
Okay. Your mother's recipe for beer sauce and ham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe she doesn't remember it, but I'm the one who found the recipe in, I think it was called the Farmhouse Cookbook. And I made that recipe, and she liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one who would make the sauce to go in the crock pot. Okay. And I particularly remember that her sister Barb and her husband Mike, when Mike had an industrial accident, was in the hospital, okay, in the Toledo area, I made that dish and took it up to the hospital with your mother, to visit them, and they really raved about it.
Oh, good.
Okay, so it's
been tested.
It's
quite a bit.
It's been tested, and hopefully it's in your mother's cookbook that she's putting together.
Yeah, she did put together a family cookbook.
That's right.
So yeah,
but I do have to remind her. I do have to remind her that I'm the one who made her a cook.
But since then, she's taken ownership because she's done it a lot more.
Oh yes,
a lot more.
Yeah, she's an extremely good cook, and she's got tons and tons of recipes.
She also tweaks a lot.
Yes,
on the fly.
Yes, by taste.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do some mystery beers. So this is going to be the same as with Mom, where Rebecca picked one for you, and Mike, John, Zach from Wine World picked one for you.
Okay.
And Rebecca did describe to Mike your tastes and Mom's tastes so that he would have a reference point for what he was picking. And obviously she knows you guys, so she can do that. So let's go with beer A. It's the one on your left. And it looks amber in color.
Yep.
A little hazy. Yours I can kind of see through. Mine
looks pretty clear.
Yeah, mine's probably closer to the bottom of the can or bottle because there's a bit of a haziness to it, as you can see.
It actually doesn't even look like the same beer.
No, for that reason it doesn't. But that ends up happening.
Okay.
Smell? Smells like What do you get out of it? It's light on the nose.
It's a very light, yes, it's a very light smell, hoppy, but light.
I get a very, very, very low kind of caramel note on there. It's very low. But it smells crisp and clean.
Yes.
Like a lager to me.
It's a little bit heavier than that in my estimation. on my rating chart, which is completely different than yours and your experience.
Smell a little bit of a honey in there, and a very, 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 very slight apple note at the end.
Yeah, a little apple I can smell. Yeah.
But other than that, like I said, the nose is it's not super robust nose. It's very, you got to kind of work to pick things. All right, go ahead and try it. Oh, it has a very particular finish to it. And I know what I'd say that is. What do you taste out of it, your first few sips?
It's okay. It's a little heavy.
I think, I don't know. For me, what I get most out of it is it's very drying. It's got a super dry finish to it. I do taste a little bit of that kind of caramel I said I was getting on the nose. But it's got like a malty sweetness, but it's also got a finish that's very cereal to it. It's like a Naked Cheerios, basically. Not Honey Nut, but just like regular Cheerio type note in the finish. It was really drying. It's not bad, but I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of like a bit in the middle on this beer.
And is it a little bit higher in alcohol content?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd see this probably around 6, maybe. Around 6%, maybe. It's,
This is not a beer that I would drink in order to quench my thirst on a hot day.
Yeah, no. It's, okay, so this is something I've gotten in beers before, and it's not what ends up being in it, but with the mouthfeel of it and some of the flavor notes, and I think partially that cereal note, it's coming off as like peanut flour. But I don't feel like it tastes like peanut butter or anything. I just feel like there's kind of like a peanut flour type note. I don't know. I'm not huge on it. It's not bad, but I don't really like it either.
Right. I'm about in that category.
Okay. So we'll let that one sit. Let's go to this B. This one looks lighter in color. Well, and this is a funny thing. Yours looks darker. Mine looks lighter. It's the reverse of the first one where mine's clear. I can see through it. Yours is a little...
It's a little closer in color
hazy
than the last two glasses were.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I think maybe you got a pour that was further down in the can or bottle than mine. So I got pretty clear and you got less clear. But yeah, it's it's kind of a little more orangey.
Yep.
Like it's amber, but it's kind of more on the orange side. And
a little more like honey, where the bees have been in the buckwheat.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and smell it. There were two things that I thought immediately when I smelled it.
It does not smell like beer, to me.
Well, it's pretty malt driven, I will say. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit sweet on the nose. Yeah, there's a lot of grain to it. I think it's got a low grade brown sugar note in the nose, mixed with like raw honey, kind of like a raw honey smell.
Yeah, I get the honey.
Yeah, it's pretty much all I smell in it. There aren't a ton of notes playing around in there. Yeah. Okay. Let me taste it. It smells more robust than the first one, though. Like it's going to have more flavor. Okay. So this one's significantly less drying. I will say that.
Okay. Compared to the other one, this one is more flat.
You mean flavor-wise or carbonation?
Effervescence.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think that's why it's probably less drying as well.
Mm-hmm. It's a little syrupy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does come off a little syrupy in comparison to the first one. It's more bitter, I will say, than the first one. Mm-hmm. But I don't dislike that about it. It is, I do get that kind of like raw honey flavor.
Has more of an aftertaste.
Yeah. There's a slight apple note in this one. I was smelling it in the first one. I wasn't really tasting it. I wasn't really smelling it so much in this one, but I taste a little apple in this one. It's like honey, apple, very grainy, like you were saying, on the nose. Yeah. This one's decent. Not bad. That's not bad. Okay. Now for rating. I gotta go back to A. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not great. B, I think's better. It's got like, I don't know, A's got like a little bit of like a tart zing to it. That's kind of weird. It's like kind of tangy, which I find odd. B has that slightly, but not that much. Okay. I'm going to give A 2, and I'm going to give B a 3. Could drink both of them.
I would give A 5.
Okay.
And give B a 2.
Okay. Okay, so 3.5 on... Yeah, 3.5 for A, and a overall 2.5 for B. So the winner, obviously, is A. So let's go ahead and find out what B is first, and we'll find out who picked this one for you. Okay. Because obviously you prefer A.
Yes, over B.
All right, so...
But Molson over the East.
So I'll pull out the... Okay, so B was Mike's pick. Mike Johnzak's pick.
Okay.
So you didn't like his pick as much. Okay. So this is Manor Hill Brewing's mild-mannered amber ale, and it is 5.3%. And Manor Hill Brewing's out of Ellicott City, Maryland. I've had this beer, but it's been a long time, and to be honest, when I had this beer, it tasted way, way better. Sorry, Kurt Kroll, but it tasted better because it was being brewed by Ben Little, and he did an outstanding job. He kind of like reinvented the amber style in a sense. He had some really crazy flavors in that beer that didn't make you think of an amber, but it was awesome. So, sorry, Kurt, but not a fan so much. I don't hate it. It's an amber ale, you know. Okay, so let's find out what the winner is. Overall of 3.5, which means that Rebecca picked the better one for you.
Rebecca picked the winner.
Okay.
Again.
So this is Blue Point Brewing Company's Toasted Lager, and it is an American-style amber, and it is 5.5% alcohol, so they're basically the same. And Blue Point is out of Patchogue, New York, and Baldwinsville, New York. So you like that one?
Well, it was a 5 on my rating.
The Toasted Lager. I've had this beer a long time ago, and I remember enjoying it, but that's back when I was just getting into craft beer. Hate to tell you, that's Anheuser-Busch InBev product now. They bought them some years ago.
Okay.
So owned by AB InBev.
Only got 5.
No.
I rate Molson higher.
Well, maybe if you come on another episode, we can sneak in Molson as a blind taste and see what you really think.
Right.
Because that's happened before on the podcast where someone will say, I really love this beer, and then we end up having it on blind, and they say bad things about it.
I understand.
Never know. But, okay. None of these, like, super wowed, but not bad either. Thank you for being on this episode.
Oh, you're welcome.
And, that'll wrap it up. People, if you want more familial episodes, let me know. You can email brutalbattlepodcast@gmail.com. Not just that, but if you guys have ideas for any new formats for episodes, or if you have particular beers you want me to try, either as warm-up beer or as mystery beers or whatever, just let us know. Thank you very much, and until next time, keep it brutal.
This has been a Nerd Circle podcast production.